Welcome to the Physics Department at Kansas State University and to your new computer account. My name is Vince Needham. I am a staff member in the Physics Computing Support Center, or PCSC, and I'm here to tell you how to use your new account and explain some of the resources that are available to you. The Physics Computing Support Center is responsible for the management and operation of the physics computing system, and you can find us in real life in room Cardwell 39 in the basement near the west entrance of the building. You can also find our virtual presence on our webpage at PCSC, Physics Computing Support Center, .phys.ksu.edu, or you can mail your help request to us at pcschelp@phys.ksu.edu. The email address is probably your best resource. That has the highest probability of actually finding one of us and getting a prompt reply. The pictures you see in the PowerPoint presentation behind me here are of our offices in Cardwell 39, currently looking a bit more like a video studio than a computer support center. Right next door to the PCSC offices is our public physics computing lab in Cardwell 038. We have a number of computers, a scanner, and some printers in this room. At the moment, we have a minimum of computers in that room in order to discourage too many people from congregating there during the COVID-19 crisis. As we add students and the semester gets underway, however, we will be increasing the number of machines available there so everyone can get their work done. But do please be mindful of the other users and the appropriate rules for interacting with people at this time. Any key that you are issued by the physics department will get you into this room. If you're an undergraduate, a graduate student, a faculty member, all of those keys work perfectly well to get into this room after hours. You never need a key to get into our website, however, pcsc.phys.ksu.edu. This is where we post news and where we have a variety of tutorials and information to help you use the system. So here's what it looks like in real life. Over here in the menu, you have a variety of options of things to learn about. Most importantly is the help menu. And from here you will find links to a variety of tutorials that will explain how things work. Most of the slides in this PowerPoint presentation have links on them, live hyperlinks if you have a copy of the program, and they will take you directly to those web pages, or you can simply visit with your web browser. So for example, if you want to learn how to configure your mail clients in order to receive mail from our system, here's the tutorial to do that. Now, of course, you need an account to use our system. If you are a new graduate student or an REU student, a research experience for undergraduate student, and you're arriving at the beginning of a semester or the beginning of the summer, then your organizers or the graduate coordinator will have already arranged for you to have an account, and you should have been provided with your username and your initial password. If you're arriving at some other time, if you are a postdoc, a new faculty member, or someone like that, then someone needs to request an account for you. There is a request form on the PCSC webpage. It must be filled out by an authorized staff or faculty member. We don't let just anybody ask for these accounts, of course. So you will have to arrange to make sure that that happens. One of the things we ask for on this form is a contact email address, and once we have that and have created the account, we will email your initial credentials to you so that you can get started and log on for the first time. So no matter how you got your initial credentials, when you first log on, you are best advised to use one of the machines in Cardwell Hall, probably one in the Public Computing Lab in Cardwell 038. This is on our private physics network, and you are right next door to the PCSC offices should you happen to need any help. You can also initially log on remotely if we know ahead of time that that is going to be a requirement for you. In these days, of course, that's much more common. So we can arrange for that if we are warned. When you do first log in, and the reason all of this is important, is you will be immediately challenged to change your password. Now, some people are fooled by this initial screen. It looks like an error message. It's not. It is a legitimate request to change your password. Please actually read it and then change your password to something unique to you. And of course, use good judgment. Our usual password rules are pretty much the same as everyone else. At least 8 or 10 characters, uppercase, lowercase, and so on and so forth. You should, of course, never share this account with anyone else. This account is also the account used for your email, so please don't go answering spam or chasing phishing messages or doing anything silly like that. We hope you have better judgment than that. Also, these credentials do apply to all of the physics computing resources. So your Windows account, your Linux account, your email, all use the same username and password. Your K-State accounts, on the other hand, are completely separate. The K-State computing system is separate from the physics computing system, and we'll discuss that a little bit more a little bit later. Now, you will be challenged to change your password right away when you first create your account, and then at some point down the road, of course, you'll need to change it again. And this can be done either locally or remotely. On a local machine, you simply hit Control-Alt-Delete, and up comes the system dialog. One of the questions there is to change your password, and you simply follow the instructions from there. Otherwise, you may need to use either our remote desktop system or our webmailer to do this. Both of them have options available that let you change your password from wherever you are in the world, and that is explained on our website at this link. Now, once you are logged in, you're going to want to get some work done. And the first thing you're going to want to know is, where's my stuff? So our file system is one big, happy, unified system between our Windows and Linux systems. So you can see all of your resources, no matter what they are, Linux data acquisition, Windows Office files, or whatever they might be, all within the same system. Now, all of our important stuff is stored on network storage. That is a device called a storage area network, or a SAN, and those show up as a set of lettered drives within Windows. Your machine will probably also have local drives showing. It will certainly have a C drive, which is the system and the applications. It will probably have a D drive, which is other storage space on that local machine. Please resist using these. They are not backed up. Other drives do get backed up because they are part of our big network storage system. In particular, you will have an O drive, which is your own personal storage space. You will have possibly a J drive, which is unique to your particular professor's research group. You will have an S drive, which is the common resources for your general group. So all of the high energy physics group, or all of the atomic, molecular, and optical group, for example, share one large S drive space for commonly interesting files. And then finally, there is a Z drive, which is the space for your website. should you choose to create one. If you put a file named index.html in there, then people can navigate to www.phys.ksu.edu/personal/your username, and that will show up. This is useful both for sharing your own personal stuff and for file sharing. If you need to share stuff with other researchers in other parts of the world, this is one way to do it. Now, all of those various letters for the disk drives get to be a little bit confusing, especially to those of us who are in management, because they may point to different things for different people. My S drive, for example, points at the James R. McDonald Atomic Molecular and Optical Physics Group shared space, whereas someone else's might point to the high energy physics shared space. And so if you simply tell me that your S drive isn't working, I'm not quite sure which S drive you're talking about. We're about to fix that, though, with a new common file system that will identify things by name. So everyone will soon get just one S drive, and within that S drive you will then have labeled folders with reasonable English names that describe what they are, and they will be automatically populated depending on what research group or what other sorts of permissions your account happens to have. This will simplify things for everyone, where you can simply tell us that you have a problem with some meaningfully named file space that we can help you with, and it will be easier for you to find. You don't need to worry about strange letter names or how to map the strange letter names on your system. This is coming soon to a computer near you. The other way that you might be able to share files with people who need them is using our particular instance of a product called OwnCloud, which we call the PhysCloud. This is similar to Dropbox or Google Drive, and if you log into PhysCloud, you'll find that all of your usual disk spaces are mapped here. So you have access to your O drive, to your Research J drive, your Research S drive, and so on and so forth. And you have the option here then to share these files with people in the outside world, either by email or by a web link, and you can choose to password protect or encrypt those files. There's a variety of different ways that you can do this. Again, if you know about Dropbox or Google Drive, the capabilities are very much the same. And again, there is a tutorial linked here that you can go and read for more details. And then there's email, probably the most important of the applications that we offer. We have our own separate email system here in the physics department, separate from the K-State system. And again, it is the same username and password as your computing account. So your email address is simply your username at phys.ksu.edu. We have a variety of clients available that you can use to read your email. So all of our machines have Microsoft Office installed, for example, and that means that you have Microsoft Outlook, the desktop client, available. This is a very powerful email client as well as a personal organizing tool. This is probably your best choice for being able to read and manage mail. And if you launch Outlook from one of our Windows machines that you've already logged into with your own credentials, it will automatically know who you are. So there's no setup required to use the Outlook desktop app. You might also choose to use the Outlook Mail app. So at webmail.phys.ksu.edu, we have the web version of Outlook, and you can log into that with your credentials. and see all the same mail that you would have seen in the Outlook desktop client. You can also use the webmailer for doing a great deal of account management. If you go to the setup and go to the options, there are a lot of things about your account that you can control from here, including changing your password. We'll actually revisit this in a moment. You can use your mobile devices to read your physics email as well. We have a tutorial on how to set up your home computer, whatever email client you happen to like. If you are a Linux user and like Thunderbird, you can use that. If you have whatever kind of phone, be it Android or Apple or whatever, you can use that. You can use all of those, and all the details, should you need them, are available at this tutorial. Finally, if you don't really want to use our email app or our email account, but rather would like to use one you already have, you can request an email forward at our PCSC website. There's another request available there. Simply tell us what you need there, and we'll see to it that all of your physics email gets forwarded to that site. Another note I should probably mention, that if you have a mobile device and you change your password, be sure to change the password in your mobile device. Almost every time that we find people getting locked out of their computing accounts because of incorrect passwords being entered, it turns out that they've failed to update the password on their phone. And the phone keeps trying to log on to their mail client, into their mail account, with the old password, and that eventually locks the account. So please do your due diligence with your mobile devices when you change your passwords. I've already mentioned the webmailer has many functions beyond just reading your mail. You can pretty much do anything in the webmailer that you can do with the desktop version of Outlook. It just requires jumping through a few more hoops in most cases. And in particular, you can use that to remotely change your password if necessary. Spam, the bane of our existence. We have a dedicated hardware device that filters all of the mail that comes to the physics department from a company named Barracuda Networks. We affectionately refer to this as simply the Barracuda, and it eats spam. Now, by default, what happens is the Barracuda will send you an email once a week telling you if you have quarantined mail, and there is a link in this email that will take you to the web interface for dealing with that quarantined mail, whether you need to have it delivered to you or simply deleted forever. Now, you can change how frequently this happens. Most of us actually prefer to have it happen daily, and that means logging onto the Barracuda itself. Many of our users simply don't realize that this is possible, but it is. And if you follow the links available in our tutorial, that's the easiest way to get there, because the Barracuda has a strange strange web address. You'll reach this logon page for the Barracuda appliance. Now, this username and password for the spam filter is different than any of your other usernames and passwords, and you can use anything you want to here. There are no rules for what your password might be. You will use the same username as your email address. If you've never used the Barracuda before, you want to use this button that says Create New Password. That will send you a temporary password to your physics email account, and you can then use the link there to get into the Barracuda and set your own password, and then you can log on to the Barracuda anytime you want to check your spam. So for example, I can log into my own account here with the simple password I've put on the Barracuda and look to see I have no quarantined spam. Yay. Now you should note that the email that you get regularly and automatically from the Barracuda has a link to your spam quarantine folder that is only good for 24 hours. So that's a security feature. You need to take action on it. When you see that email, don't try to use one that's a week old because it won't work. And again, this is all explained at the link here. You may, even in the 21st century, need to kill trees and print things on paper. And we do have printers. Most notably, we have a pair of color printers in the Public Computing Lab in Cardwell 28. There are also printers to be found on each floor, usually associated with some research group or another, and in the various laboratories. These are all network printers, and so they are available from any computer that is on our network. None of our printers are local printers. When you go to set up a printer in your account, do not use a local printer. It won't work. Now, this is especially true in the Public Computing Lab in Cardwell 38. For some strange reason, the main color printers there show up as local printers, and people get tricked into adding them that way, and they don't work. You always have to add a network printer. Now, the way to make sure that you're seeing the network printers is to open the Windows Add Printer dialog and search the directory, the network directory, and you will get a display that looks like this. That shows all of our printers, each with a reasonable name that tells you what room it's in, who owns it, what kind of printer it is, and you can add the printers from there, and that should work. Now, additionally, we also have a large format printer available in the Physics Computing Support Center. So if you need to print posters for meetings, for example, we can handle that for you. There is a form that you need to fill out on our website, and that allows you to submit a PDF file of your poster and all of the important information about how it needs to be printed, and then we will print it for you. You need to give us at least 2 business days prior notice before you need it. Do not ask for it the night before your flight leaves for the meeting. That's a bad idea, especially if 100 other people in the department are all going to the same meeting and are all getting posters printed at the same time. So please be prompt. Now, at some point or another, you will also need to install some kind of special software to support your research. Obviously, we here in PCSE don't want to have to run around to every individual computer in every laboratory to add every oddball bit of device driver for strange instruments or strange analysis. So you can do that for yourself. It is possible to get a temporary set of credentials that allow you to only install software. There is, again, a form that you need to fill out on the PCSE website, and we will email you a special set of credentials. These are only useful for installing software. So when you start the software install process on your machine, you will be asked for credentials, and the username is /ladmin, as in local admin, and then the password is the password that we send you in response to your request. This is good for 24 hours. It allows you to install the software. The software must be on a local drive to the computer. This is the one exception to storing things locally on a computer. Everything else you should save on a network drive that gets backed up, but your installer files must be local to your computer in order for this to work. Now, when you do that, of course, you should make sure that this is not software we already have. So, don't try to install Microsoft Office. We already have that. Also, you are not allowed to install personal apps or apps for which you have a student license or some other special license. Licensed software we have to deal with ourselves. And, of course, you shouldn't be installing anything that you shouldn't. No pirated software, no oddball games, nothing that isn't professional and legal and above board. Finally, if you want to install your Dropbox or your Google Drive account or something like that, you can do that, but be careful. Use the full step-by-step instructions in the installer that allow you to tell the software where you want these files to be stored, because you probably have a very large number of them, maybe gigabytes worth. You don't want the default location that these programs choose, because that will fill up your network storage account very quickly. You want to save these to some local space in all probability. This is, again, one of the few exceptions to having things stored on the network drive. If you don't do this properly, you will probably fill up the storage available on your network account and you won't be able to log in, and you'll have to come find us to fix it. So do be careful if you want to do something like that. Now, as mentioned, the physics department computing system is separate from the K-State system. But there are certain things about the K-State system that you should know and that I will briefly touch on here. First is that the domain names ksu.edu and k-state.edu are, for most things, completely identical. They all point to the same computers, except when they don't. There are a very few exceptions where you have to use one or the other, and unfortunately there's no clear way to know that unless someone has already told you. So, for example, Zoom credentials and the Zoom system address uses KSU as its destination. However, other resources require you to use k-state. Usually you will be warned when this is true, so pay attention when you're using various and sundry university-related applications to see if that's true. But for just visiting the web or just for sending mail, they're interchangeable. The K-State homepage is at ksu.edu or k-state.edu. And of course, all university stuff is accessible from here, not least of which are the current COVID-19 rules and guidelines that we hope you're already familiar with. There's also, if you scroll all the way down here, links to the calendar of events. There we go. And links to K-State information technology if you need to know more about computing at K-State. Now, when you use K-State computing stuff, you have to use your K-State account. The username for a K-State account is referred to as an EID, an electronic ID, and you typically have to use a two-factor authentication program along with the password that goes along with your EID. There's a commercial product called Duo that you can install on your phone or otherwise work with in order to validate that you are the appropriate user of the K-State resource that you're trying to use. And so the rules for usernames and passwords and access are different for K-State than they are for physics. The details of that are on the EID web page for the university that is shown here. I've previously mentioned that there is a special Zoom address for using the university's Zoom account if you need to host a meeting. That's much better than trying to use your own personal Zoom account if you've ever tried to use that, because there are fewer limitations on the university accounts, and those are accessed by ksu.zoom.us. And then, of course, I've already mentioned the unfortunate COVID-19 rules and regulations that we all need to be dealing with. Now, possibly just for convenience, or possibly because of COVID, you may need to access our computing resources remotely, including complete access to your desktop and programs. The way that you do that is using the remote desktop protocol. This is available in all versions of Windows. It's also available in most Linux distributions and even in Apple Mac OS. You can get a full-blown desktop that you can log into with access to all of your files and all of the same permissions you have by way of the remote desktop. So here is the remote desktop Windows interface. There are two ways to get into your physics computers. We have a dedicated remote desktop server that will give you a simplified, sort of universal version of our Windows desktop. It has all of the most popular applications installed, and you have access to your files. And that is known as ts.phys.ksu.edu. TS standing for Terminal Server, which is an older name for remote desktop. Simply putting that into the remote desktop application here, and then using either, as you see, physics_username or just your email address. As your username will get you in. You can then connect, and you'll be challenged for your usual physics credentials. And you're in. So you now have a desktop interface that you can use. You have access to all the various programs you need. You can even use this to initiate a new remote desktop session to yet another computer within the building. However, you don't have to do that. You don't need to do the two-step process, because there's another way to get straight to a particular computer that you might want to use. And that's called a gateway service. Now, you need to set up the remote desktop client on your personal computer to do this, and the instructions for doing so are here at this link to the PCSC webpage. But by simply specifying that you want to use the gateway and giving the name of the computer that you want to directly connect to, you can go straight to your own Cardwell Hall Physics Department desktop or your special laboratory data-taking computer, for example, and interact with it directly and not have to obviously interact with the terminal server itself. So hopefully I've touched on all of the important aspects of our computing system. If not, again, our website, pcsc.phys.ksu.edu, has a variety of tutorials, or you can simply send us email at pcschelp@phys.ksu.edu, or possibly even drop in and visit us in Cardwell 39, although in these days that might be a little bit dicey. The PowerPoint file for this presentation will be made available on our website. And there is also an introductory web page that covers these topics also available there. So there's multiple ways for you to learn this besides this video. Happy computing!